Hey, this is Passy from Passy's World of ICT, the guy with the white hat. And today we're having a look at dice rolling, because a lot of games you roll a dice, like Monopoly and games like that. So this is an important little project we need to do for other games we might make later on. We're hoping to make a kind of a little board game where you roll and move at some stage. But the other key thing is we're going to learn about random numbers in this project. And that way we can get the computer to pick random items, okay? And we can make a game like paper, scissors, and rock, where we play against the computer, and it's totally random as to what the computer's going to pick. So let's get on and let's get into it. All right, so in this lesson, we're using the Visual Basic random number generator, and that's going to create a rolling dice simulator. So it should just work like a real dice, and you should get numbers 1 to 6 generated. Okay, so here is a look at what the finished program looks like, the first program we're doing, and we'll just get down here and run it for you. And of course, I have not got a good background for you. Okay, so while this is loading, let me just say to you too that remember, I am a slow talker, so make sure that you put this video at like 1.5x or 1.75x speed using the cogs down on the player bar. So on the YouTube player bar, there's a cog, right? A mechanical cog. You click on that and you can adjust the play speed. You need to make it 1.5 or 1.75x and the video will flow a lot better. All right, so here is our random dice roll. So we roll and we got a 5, and notice it counted here that we got 1 5, and we just keep rolling and we get different numbers at random, just like you would for real dice. Now, if you do this enough times with the statistics counter, these numbers here should all even out after a while. Okay, so that's the idea of that. That is the single roll dice. And okay, let's go back to where we were. Okay, so that's a single roll dice, and then we get this one going first just so we can roll the dice, and then we add the statistics in as well. And you can see here, after a few rolls, they should all start evening out, okay? And you should get about the same number of each one under long-term probability rules. It should be a 1 out of 6 chance of getting 4s, and that chance should be equal to the chance of getting anything else. All right, that doesn't mean that if you do 6 rolls, you will definitely get 1 4 amongst those 6 rolls. No, it kind of works different to that. And if you've used a dice, you will know that. Okay, once we've done that, we're going to use random numbers again to make a paper, scissors, rock game. Okay, so it's going to be interesting where you can play against the computer, and it'll be totally random. The computer will randomly pick whether it does paper, scissors, or rock. And we're going to use random numbers in other projects as well. All right, in the challenge task for this lesson, we're going to modify that original program so it does 2 dice, okay? Now, all of the dice images for this program and this rolling dice banner up here, that's all available in the downloads for this lesson, as well as a full set of PDF instructions and a Word document with program code and form design in it. But let's take a look at this more advanced dice rolling one. So if we go to that, that's our second one here, and it only just fits on that page. All right, so when we roll this, we get 2 dice rolling and we add up the total. So we've got a 6 and a 1 makes 7. So you can see in the statistics here, it's put a 1 next to the 7. Okay, we roll again, we get a 5 and a 4 is a 9. So we've counted that we've got 1 9. And yeah, we can just keep rolling and rolling and rolling this. But what will happen on this one is the probabilities are not equal for each of these adding up number combinations, and we're going to talk about that later in the video, okay, when we do the challenge task and the 2 dice rolling. Okay, now for the single dice project, we already kind of did this when we did the application programming course, so we built a video on that about random numbers for dice rolls and how you make random numbers in Visual Basic. So we're going to cross over to that video now, and you'll see that video where I'm wearing a different shirt. And then after we've watched that video about the 1 dice rolling and getting statistics, we'll be back in the Hawaiian shirt and we'll tell you some help that's going to enable you to do the 2 dice rolling, because it's a little bit tricky, some of it, but we'll show you what to do basically, okay? So here's other Passy in other shirt to show you the single dice, and then this Passy will be back later on to show you the 2 dice. Hope that's not all too confusing for you. All right, so the first thing is to create the form, or the GUI, or graphical user interface. So these are all terms you need to know if you're learning to do our programming and application development. So we've got 6 images we made in Adobe Fireworks, which is a great little graphics drawing tool. Not as well known as Photoshop, but you could do it in Photoshop as well. But if you've got the Creative Collection, you'll have Adobe Fireworks anyway. So anyway, we could draw images. We just made images of 6 different dice there for you, 6 different dice faces, and you can get them in the downloads. If you go to the video description and check that out, you can get those from our website. And first you just lay them out on the form inside picture boxes. Now we'll tell you the size of the picture boxes and all that sort of thing later. And we just name each of these, like dice with image for number 1, we could call pick 1, and then like number 2, we could call pick 2. So you need like pick 1, pick 2, pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, pick 6. So to begin with, they're just spread out over the form while we get them in position. And because this form color is dark green that we're using here, it's best to make the back color of those dice dark green as well, so they won't have any white crunchy edges and they'll kind of blend in really well. Okay, so we set the exact same properties for all 6 of those picture boxes, and some other properties we need to set is to make the size 106, 106 so that they're nice squares. Size mode is going to be auto size, and visible is false because when the program starts, we don't want to see any of these dice faces on the screen. Okay, so we drag the picture boxes, once we got them set up and they're all 106 by 106, they're scattered all over the screen like this. And what we do is we drag them all to the center next to that roll button. So we kind of drag number 2 and put it exactly on top of where number 1 is there. Drag the 3 across, drag the 5, stack it on top. So we're stacking them all on top of each other like flat pieces of paper so you can't see the ones underneath. And when you've done that, what you'll have is you'll just have one dice face showing here, and all of the other 5 are stacked underneath it. Now, it doesn't matter which one you've got showing. You don't have to have number 1 showing or number 6. It doesn't matter what order you actually stack these in, as long as they're stacked up all neatly on top of each other so it looks like there's just one kind of dice face there. All right, now they're all stacked on top of each other, but we've made the visible property false so that when you first run the program, it'll look like this and there won't be anything on the screen. Once you click the roll button, it's going to roll it and one of those dice faces will show up. And then if you keep clicking roll, it keeps rolling it, and by the laws of probability, different dice face number values should show up as you do that. Now, the objects on a VB form, when we're doing proper application design, you're supposed to do a mock-up design. A mock-up is something that looks really like the real thing, which is what we've done here. I believe with Visual Basic, look, it's got a form designer in there. You can just design it on the form, and then once it's settled, then you could sort of get that with the snipping tool, put it into a Word document for your design document. Because if you're doing VCE software development or other kind of courses like at high school or community college, they're going to make you submit these design documents as part of your project. So you can either use mock-up like we're doing here and then you annotate it, which we'll do in a minute, or you could draw this up in Paint or Word just with shapes and kind of type what each of the shapes are, and that's kind of more like a layout diagram. But yeah, your teacher, whoever's doing your course, will cover this in detail. We're just going to show you the mock-up because we've used that here. So you notice we've got random numbered dice appearing in that top left-hand corner. On the form, when you clicked onto the form, if you just click anywhere in the green area, what you can do there is you just set the text, don't change the form name, leave that as form 1. Just set the text to say random number dice. Now the next thing we've got there, that heading with the 3 dice rolling, that's actually an image that we made in Fireworks. Just drew that up ourselves and put some writing in. So you can get that in the downloads and just put it in another picture box as its own images. We've got the roll button here. So we set up a button, and the roll writing is actually 18 point in size. We've just used the standard Visual Basic Microsoft font, and make the back color of that dark green so it blends in really well with the background. And we need to name that using the Hungarian camel case type thing, which you should know by now from doing our course. That's called BTN roll. So that's the roll button. And down here, we've just got a little label that we dragged out, and it says random number generator. So that white writing, that's just a label, and that's font size 8. You can see it's a lot smaller, the writing there. Okay, now the back color, if you click anywhere in this green area, you'll get Form 1, and for its properties, just set the back color dark green. And the size we've got here, which will kind of match up with the dice size well, is 770 by 620. So you could change the property there to get it that exact size, or just drag it on your screen to whatever you think looks neat. Now, pick 1 to pick 6, we've stacked them all up on top of each other, just like we showed you previously. Their size needs to be 106, 106, so they're all the same size and stack, and you only see the top one. And that button down the bottom is BTN close, and we're just going to use that to close the form and shut down the program if someone just wants to finish up. So this whole completed diagram here, we've got a drawing of what the screen's going to look like. It looks very much like the real screen, so it's a mock-up, and we have done those arrows and labeled everything, okay? This is called your kind of mock-up design. Sometimes it's called a layout diagram, but you know, for projects you submit for assessment, you need to have one of these kind of form designs. And this is what it looks like. You have all the items on there, and you say like what size the fonts are, what color things are, and all that sort of stuff. Now you could draw this up in Paint. You could even do this in PowerPoint and snip that out and put it into your Word document, your design doc you're making for the app. That would all be fine, but anyway, we're talking way too long on that. The next thing you need, which we haven't done in any of our programs yet, is that you need these object descriptions, okay? And what happens there is you make a table. We've just made it in PowerPoint and made it very colorful. But look, you could just do this in a plain black and white table in the Word document. And the object description just have the name of the object. So the objects we had on there is that button for rolling, BTN roll, BTN close, the footer, that little writing at the bottom, all our picture boxes with the dice, and picture box number 7 where we've got that heading with the 3 dice, that drawing that's in there. So all of those things here, we've just said what their name is, what type of thing that they are, and then we need a description. Now we're not going to read those all out. You can pause the video and read them if you want to. But yes, you kind of describe what each of those items is and why it's on the form, what its function is. All right, so that's an object descriptions table, and that would go in your Word document as well and be part of the design document you're handing in for submission. All right, especially if you're doing in Victoria, Melbourne, Australia, VCE computing or VCE software development. All right. Now, random numbers, the program design. So we've got the form all sorted. Now we're ready to do the program. So we do pseudocode for the algorithm. And this is another thing which needs to go into your Word document. It's part of your design documentation and something you would hand up that forms part of your assessment. All right, now the algorithm here is fairly simple. You know, if the roll button's clicked, well then we need to just set all those picture boxes to be invisible so that there's no dice face showing. So if we've just done a click and 5 is showing, we need to just reset so the 5 isn't there and it's just a blank form to start off with. And then we're going to learn how to generate random numbers in Visual Basic. It's got a random number generator. So we want just some random number chosen by the computer between 1 and 6. And we're going to store that in the int roll value variable inside the program. All right, so the program has done this line. It's come up with a number, some number. Let's just say it's number 3, all right? Then we're going to do checking. So if that int roll value is 1, we need to make the first picture box show up as visible that has the number 1 for the dice face on it. But you know, like if it had generated a 3, it would come through these else ifs and it get down to this one. So in the first one it checks, hey, is the number 1? Nope, so we don't do that. Hey, otherwise, is the number 2? Nope, so we don't do that. Is the number 3? Oh yeah, that's the number I've generated. So that makes picture box 3, which has the dice face with the 3 dots showing in it. So we could have used a case statement for this. It probably would have looked a lot neater in the pseudocode, and go back to our example on case statements if you're not sure about what they are. But look, we just started developing it and just used else if, which works equally as well. The other thing is that For more complex pseudocode, we'd probably do a trace table and desk check this by hand, working things out, but this isn't doing any mathematical calculations, so we don't need to do a trace table for this one. But if you don't even know what a trace table is, go back to our previous lesson, find the one on trace table and desk checking. Make sure you know how to do those, because that's another thing you have to know for sometimes handing in design folios, and certainly for exams when you do them. And then we've just got the extra pseudocode, which would sit down the bottom of here for btn close. So when that's clicked, we just want to close the program and shut the whole thing down. And then we got the end, because that's the end of the pseudocode. Notice these guys are pushed in a little bit. They're just in from the edge a little bit from the end. And you know, right up the top of the pseudocode, you had the begin. And you can use like start and stop, or you use begin and end. But yeah, make sure you put those on your pseudocode, because that's part of the standard process. All right, now we did that pseudocode. And the next thing you need before you write your program, strictly speaking, following design rules, is something called a data dictionary. Now, we haven't done these before, like we haven't put up object descriptions describing everything that was on the form, and we haven't done a data dictionary either. A data dictionary describes everything that's in the program code or is going to be in the program code. Now, for our dice roll program, it's really super simple. They don't come any more simple than this, because we only have one variable, and that's called int roll value. All right, so you know, for this one we're only actually going to have one data dictionary entry, because we've only got one variable. But if we had other variables, like in stage 2, we're going to add counters to count how many times 5s have come up and count how many times 2s have come up. Each of those counter variables would have to go in the data dictionary later on. But for now, for this first version of the program, it's just int roll value is your variable name, and then your next column is type. We're setting that up as an integer. We're not going to worry about the size. We're just going to use the default size that Visual Basic makes it when you choose integer for your data type. The scope is global, that it could be used anywhere within the program, and just a description there about what it does, okay? And this actually completes our detailed design. And once you've done all these things, you've done your form mock-up or layout diagram to show how the form is going to look. You've done the object descriptions table that describes all those different objects that are going on the form. Then you've done your pseudocode, which explains the logic and the algorithm of how the program code is going to work. And then you've done your data dictionary to describe all of those variables which you're setting up in your pseudocode and giving them the camel case names they're going to have in the program. Then you're ready to code. However, for this project, there's always a however if you've watched all of our other videos. Yeah, look, first we need to find out how do we do random numbers in Visual Basic. So we'll look at that. Then I promise we're finally ready to do coding, the favorite fun bit. All right, so random number generator, the first way you can do it is this way, and we will explain it a bit, but look, this looks really complicated and you may not understand the explanation we're going to do right now, but look, that's fine. You can always Google or go to Stack Overflow and you'll be able to pick up some code to do this. Like if you just Google Visual Basic, generate random number between 1 and 6, because lots of people have wanted to do this to make little dice roll things for games they're making online. Yeah, it'll just show you this straight away. So let's pull it apart here. The RND function, let's go back to here where we use this randomized brackets. Okay, the randomize kind of goes into these complicated mathematical routines, which we don't want to go into today. But what random seed does is basically it kind of looks at, you think of it as just looking at the clock and what time it is today, and just grabbing those numbers and using that as its first crunching point before it decides what the value is going to be. Now, it doesn't pick a value between 1 and 6 straight away. The RND brackets down in here always just picks a value that's a decimal value between 0.000 going forever. So it could be, 0 is the lowest value, and then the highest value is kind of 0.9999999. All right, so it doesn't quite go up to 1. It just goes from 0 to 0.9999999. And so how you're going to do 1 to 6 is that if it generated 0, if you multiply by 6, you're going to have 0 times 6 is 0. And the first number on our dice isn't 0, it's 1. So if we've got like 0 times 6 is 0, we could just do plus 1, add 1 on, and then we'd have our number 1. So that's kind of why we got this plus 1 on the end. And then it could pick all sorts of numbers, like it could pick 0.25867 or whatever and multiply that by 6 here down in the formula. And that would come up, maybe when that gets integerized and rounded off, that'll produce a 3 on the dice. If it gets right to the end, if you happen to get 0.99999 or something really high in the 0.9s, when it multiplies by 6, all right, it's going to come out 5 point something. So it might come out 5.9324. And we do this thing int up the front, integerizing. Now what that does is if you've got something like 5.923, it goes, okay, we've got the 5, that's kind of an integer before we've got the decimal point. Then we've got this 0.9253, and that's kind of the decimal bit. So it gets rid of the decimal bit. It says, no, not interested in the 0.5923. I'm just interested in that number that's at the front, that whole number, the 5. And so it'll grab the 5. And then like if you add the plus 1 on here, then you'll get 6 and it'll show the number 6 on the dice. So look, you can research that more and think about it, but you don't have to memorize it or know it. You can always Google for it or find it in Stack Overflow. Now, if you are Googling and looking at Stack Overflow, you might find this other way as well using math.ceiling. Just to go back to this first one, the pink one here, just with this is kind of first principles because it's very similar to write code like this. This is very similar to what you might write in Python or in C if you're doing random numbers, like you're using the random number generator, whatever one they've got, you're timesing by 6, you're adding on 1, and then somehow you're getting it to a whole number, right? Now, that will work in most programming languages. That's kind of like what we call first principles. This second one here, though, this is very Visual Basic specific. It only works in Visual Basic, but it's really cool. What this does is it kind of uses this math.ceiling thing. And so we're multiplying by 6, and the trouble is that if we did 6 times 0, like we're talking about, we'll get 0. But what math ceiling does is it takes it up to the next closest integer. So 0 is not an integer if you know your maths properly. The next closest integer going up is a 1, so it'll round that off to 1. And if you get 5.9253, it'll go, okay, what's the next closest integer going up from that? And if we went up from 5.9253 to the next integer whole number, well, that's 6. And so that's how you generate your 6. And then you get all these random numbers in between that when you kind of go up to the next integer, you'll generate 2, 3, 4, 5, the other numbers. All right, so that's kind of cleaner and simpler to use. So you're quite welcome to use that. We tried them out using both versions in our program, and look, they produce pretty much exactly the same results. Now, what happens if you wanted numbers between 1 and 10? Because you want to make a 1 to 10 guessing game for people. Well, all you have to do is just change that previous code. Instead of having a 6 in here, just put a 10 in there because you want 1 to 10 this time. And if you like the math ceiling version, which is kind of cleaner to read, instead of multiplying by 6 to get 1 to 6, you just multiply by 10 to get 1 to 10. And if you wanted like 1 to 99, you just change this 10 here to a 99, and that would give you values between 1 and 99. And if you wanted 1 to 99 using math ceiling version, if you like this one better, just change that 10 to a 99. But what if you want to get numbers between 5 and 12? So they're not starting at 1, they're starting at some other number. Okay, now here it gets a bit tricky, but next we're going to show you a simpler way after this, all right? But if you were just thinking about this yourself, based on the sort of information we've already got, you have to think of 5 and 12 as being 4 added to some random number between 1 and 8. So if you had the number 4 plus 1, you'll get the lower value that we want, 5. And if you had the max kind of generated number between 1 and 8, and that includes the 8 of 8, well, 4 plus 8 will give you the top end value here of 12, okay? And so we could write code like this, and this would get us numbers between 5 and 12. So this math ceiling part, that's generating 1 to 8, and then whatever gets generated, we're adding 4 on, and that'll actually change 1 to 8 to be 5 to 12. All right, so you could do it from first principles and work it out like that yourself. And if you're thinking, oh my God, I thought we were just doing random numbers and this was going to be easy to put some numbers on a dice, why is it getting so hard so quickly, Passy? Look, don't worry. There is that way of first principles, work it out yourself. However, and there is always a however, because we love howevers, there is a general formula we can use if we want a specific number range, like 5 to 12. And I kind of got this by reading the Microsoft pages on Visual Basic random numbers. And you just do this sort of formula here. You go int, and then you have double brackets. Now, you put the highest value you want, which in our case is 12. That's kind of the upper boundary, upper limit value. And you take away the lowest value that you want. And the lowest one we want's a 5, or kind of like this lower boundary. And then add 1 on after that. And once you've done that sum in brackets, then you times it by the random number generator. And by mathematical operations order, it'll do this first in brackets, then it'll do the timesing by random number, which is 0.000 to 0.999, whatever the computer picks in that range. And then it'll add on the low value, which is the 5, okay? So if we wanted to get numbers for like highest values 12, lowest values 5, like we're trying to do here, numbers between 5 and 12, if we substitute into that formula, our highest value is a 12, so we put a 12 in. Lowest value we want to get is a 5, because we want to have it between 5 and 12, so you put a 5 in there. Substitute in, you could just type this code with your dim statement and the other things here. So you'd dim it as integer, and then for the equals, after the equals, just put this in as your code, all right? And that'll give you numbers between 5 and 12. Now, some people, purists, might say, oh, you can make the program run more efficiently, and it might be like 1/1,000th of a millisecond faster each roll if you actually do this maths for Visual Basic beforehand, so it doesn't have to do that processing. So we could say 12 minus 5 is 7, 7 plus 1 is 8. We could simplify that formula a bit and just put 8 times the random number plus 5, all right? But either way will work. And remember, if you're stuck, you can always Google for this, or someone's already made a YouTube video on this, if you look on YouTube, for how to generate random numbers between two values in Visual Basic. Okay, but we just want to just kind of show you the full story of everything. So that's the lesson on random numbers finished. So that's kind of like a little video lesson all of its own. And let's get back into our dice roll program. Because, whoa, finally, we're ready to write the code, the fun part. Yeah, let's cut some code, all right. So the code we need, the first thing that we need to put in is that we need to set up that we make all of the dice pictures, you know, the 1 to 6, make them invisible. So you set their property, pick one.visible equals false. So set them all to be invisible at the start, that's what we want. And so when you've done that, this is just continuing down in the code below what we were just looking at. When you've done that, what happens is this is the first screen that happens when you run the program. See, all the picture boxes are invisible and you can't see any dice there. Then we have the random number generator. So we're just doing it this way, the randomize and the first principles one. You could use the math.ceiling version in here if you want. And inside the computer, it's stored that number in memory, okay? So the screen's still blank, but it's got the number. Now let's say when we did int 6 times random, the number came out as the number 3, all right? That was the random number between 1 and 6 that we got. We got a 3. In this code we've got here that's checking, it'll get down to here, it'll go, oh, the int roll value is 3. I need to make picture number 3 visible, okay? So in that big stack of invisible pictures, it's going to find number 3, and number 3 will be made visible and kind of shine through and show up on top. And all the others you can't see because they're still invisible. So that's kind of the trickery to make it roll different numbers when you click the roll button. Not really trickery, that's the processing how you do it. So we're just using else if. Again, you could have used a case statement for this if you really like case statements. We're just kind of super used to coding else if. So that's the way we tend to do it. We should start using a bit more case in our program coding. And of course, once you got the code in, you need to test it. So basically we're just testing it, doing quite a few runs, clicking. until you've made sure that it's actually rolling all 6 values on the dice. Now, they won't come out in order like that, 3, 4, 1. I mean, you might get a 3, then you might get a 2, then you might get another 3. They might repeat for a little while before you get a 5 or a 6 showing up at all. So we didn't just do 6 rolls of the dice to get this. We were just rolling away and we said, oh, we've got a 3. Let's screen print that to prove that 3 works. Bang, 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 rolling away. Oh, we got a 4. Let's screen print that to show that 4 works. All right, so that's how we've done that testing. It's not just 6 tests that comes up 6 different numbers. That's not the way the program works, because that's not how random probability for rolling a real dice works. Okay, now that is version 1 finished. So if you want to pause the video and take a break, which we suggest you do at this stage, and just get that version 1 working, code it up and test it, see that you can get the 6 different numbers displaying like we have there in that test run. And then version 1's done, but in the next part of the video, which is kind of like another second lesson really, so pause and take a break here. What we're going to look at is how to put this result statistics. We're going to add that on. That's why we left that empty space on the right hand side to put this in. So pause the video now and take a break. All right, welcome back. So now we're just going to do an upgrade to our program, and we're going to have this dice roll statistic. So each time we click rolling and like we get a 2, it's going to add another one onto here. So it'd become 18 2s now that we've got from doing all our rolls so far. So how do we set that up? Well, if you do enough clicking, first we'll talk about some other things. I think on the next part we set it up. But let's just talk about it. Now, if you do enough of these rolling clicks, like click, 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 and keep getting these different results, and we'll keep updating, the right number for when a 4 comes up, it'll add 1 to the 4s count and all this sort of stuff. They should start to even out. You can see they're kind of all around the 20s here. Maybe we've got a few less 2s than we should. Maybe we're expecting a couple more 2s to come up soon. But every time it comes up though, the chances are equal. So even if you haven't seen a 2 for a long time, it doesn't make the 2 any more likely. The chances of a 2 are still 1 out of 6 every time, which is kind of this math stuff you need to study in probability. But not going to worry about that here. We're doing computer programming. So yeah, there's long range. You expect all those numbers to even out on average with long range probability. Now, if a certain number of numbers seem to come up a lot more times than the others, then something's wrong with the dice, and we say that the dice is biased. And I don't know if anyone's noticed this yet, but if you take a look at our little heading picture here, we got a trick dice. We've got one that's got a 3 on this side and then a 3 hiding away on the other side. So, I don't know, if we were playing this game rolling 3 dice, would people pick up on that? Or if we were just rolling this dice on its own, hey, 3 would come up a lot. You'd get a lot of 3s because we got an extra 3 on there and maybe we're missing one of these numbers. And so 5s would never come up because we actually just rubbed out the 2 dots and turned a 5 into a 3. All right, so this statistics will show, like whether our dice program is biased or not. So that's the whole idea here. Okay, now the first thing we do is add that group box, all right? So this guy here, the group box, you need to drag out, and to get that heading dice roll statistics, you just set the text for the group box to say dice roll statistics, font size 12. Now, if you kind of forget to do this and you do your other labels first, when you drag the group box out, it's going to be on top of the labels, and you'll have to mess around with it, right-clicking on it to bring it to the front. And it's a little bit tricky to get that little pop-up menu to come up. But yeah, you'll have to do some stuff to send it to the back because it'll be on top of everything. So you can right-click and get send to back. But the way it should work is put the group box there first and stretch it out a bit. And you can always readjust the stretching later on to fix it to be all balanced. And then we start doing the labels, all right? So group box comes first, then we do these labels, and they're just writing there that says 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s in the text property of the label, and they don't need special names or anything. These ones though must have special names. Now they kind of look like text boxes, but they're not. don't use a text box because people can type into text boxes and change them. These are labels which people can't type in and mess around with. And they need special names like LBL ones count for counting the ones. And down here, this one's called LBL sixes count for counting the sixes. All right, so they need special names. How we've made them look like text boxes, a little trickery there, is that we've used back color equals silver, and we've set the border style to fixed 3D, which kind of puts this border on them and makes them pop up out of the screen a little bit kind of 3D style with some slight white around the edges, if you can see that. And we're just putting text, we're just putting 000 into the text property of them, just so when the program first runs, they're all sitting on zeros because that looks good. And then once it starts running, we'll start the counting. All right, so that's kind of your mock-up, your layout diagram. That would be the design for the form for version 2 of the program that we're working on now. And now let's just look at the program code. So in the program code you had for version 1, just go up the top, right up the top, where it's public class form 1, and we just need to add in some dim statements here to set up our counters. So we're going to call our counter variables here int ones counter, int twos counter, and they're all going to be initialized as 0, and they're all going to be integer type, so that they're just whole numbers for counting. And strictly speaking, you would then go back to that data dictionary we made, and you know how it only had one item in it and it was really tiny. You should add each of these in as another row in that table and just say what they do, okay? And that they're integer type and that they need to be set at 0 as their initial value. So we would go back and put that in the data dictionary to do proper design. Now the other change we need to make to the program, now that we've got these counters set up, is we just go to the existing if-else statements that we're deciding which picture dice to show. And we just add some extra code in that's going to process the counting and also move that program variable that's hidden away in memory out into those little 3D box labels we made on the form, so we can actually see what the counter's up to. So for each of our outcome we've got where it's making the picture visible so we can see it, we just add 2 lines of code there, which is going to add one onto the correct counter and also get that counter updated value put out onto the form so that we can do it. So adding that in will pretty much, I think that finishes the program. They're the only changes we need to make. So now we need to test it. So here's just a test run we did, just doing a few rolls. And when you only do a few rolls, you might not see the long-term, long-range probability playing out. Because they all have equal chances, 1 out of 6, 5s should have come up a bit more. Like it seems like, wow, why did 2s come up 5 times? Well, this isn't long enough range yet. We haven't clicked enough times for it. On average, the probability will be 1 out of 6. So there was a bit of a run on 2s there. But if you keep clicking away a few more times and get up around the 50s, you can see things have evened out a lot more. 2s are 48, and we didn't seem to have any 5s, but 5s have actually gone past 2s. We're having a little bit of a run on 5s at the moment, and they're 57, okay? So yeah, there are a couple of test runs there. We're checking out that all of the numbers are tallying up. And also watch the counters as they tick over. Like if this is a 1, you should have seen this guy up here tick over. Make sure that when a 1 comes up, it's not ticking over as a 4 or something like that in the counters. So this is the VBNet 2 dice roll challenge. So this is to get 2 dice rolling and to have statistics about what the 2 dice add up to. Now, later on, we've got a later project where we want to keep a high score table. So the game we might have people play is just a dice rolling game, a 2 dice, where they get 10 rolls and get a grand total. And then if their grand total is bigger than sort of the ones in the highest score table at the moment, they can move into the high score table. So we will be using this project, adding onto it to do a high score table further on in our course. So it's important that you do this project. So we showed the project to you before, and we will show it to you one more time. So the idea here is that we've got 2 dice, and when we roll them, it's going to add up the totals each time and keep a running tally in here of what we've got. And you can see already that 7s, 6s, and 8s and 9s, we seem to be getting plenty of them, and not many 2s, because it's pretty hard to get like a 1 and a 1 and get a score of 2. The 1 and 1, sometimes called snake's eyes, and get that. All right, so let's move along. So when you add and do statistics testing, you'll find that the outcomes are not even, and the total of 7, that's going to come up more than the others. So here we've done quite a few rolls, if you look at this example here, and see how 7's come up 61, with 6 and 8 quite close as well. These are all around 60. We get a lot more of these than we do of these other ones, okay? Now there's a reason for that with the 2 dice, because there's a lot more ways of making 7 as a total and making any other numbers. So we can get a 1 and a 6 to get a 7. We can roll a 6 and a 1 the other way around. We can have a 2 on the first dice and a 5 on the second to get a 7. A 5 and then a 2 and get a 7. A 3 and a 4 and get a 7. And a 4 and a 3 and get a 7. So there's 8 different ways out of the 6 times 6, 36 total different combinations you can get when you roll 2 dice, but there's 8 of them which add up to 7. So 7 should be your most popular number that you can roll, most popular total that you can roll, followed closely by 6 and 8. Okay, so that's something handy to remember for dice games like Monopoly, that if you're rolling and trying to get to a particular square, you need to realize that you're most likely to get a total of 6, 7, or 8 more than anything else, and trying to get a 2 and trying to get a 12 are the least likely. And beating the odds, of course, it has to be an unbiased pair of dice. You can see in our picture here, if you've had a good look, this is a cheater's dice. It's for people that are cheating. They've got 2 3s on this at the bottom and on the side. So that would not be a fair, normal statistics rolling dice. It's going to be biased. You're going to get 3s come up more often than they really should. Okay, now this is from the internet. The 2 dice sum unbiased probabilities, which means you've got all clean legal dice, not like this one here. You can see the chance of rolling a 2 and a 12 are really low, like they're only 2.78, about 3%. So it's really hard to get a 2 or a 12 when you're rolling, but 6, 7, and 8 are the most likely ones, okay? And then after that, they drop off. 2, 3, 4 is low, and 10, 11, 12 are low probabilities, all right? So that's the sort of pattern we should find if we do a lot of rolls of our dice, and it is kind of the pattern that we're seeing here. 2's blocked up by that arrow, unfortunately, so you can't see it, but it was a low number. All right, so how do we get this? First, we need to do the form design. So you just take the 1 dice program that we just finished, and we just changed the colors. So we made the background a deep blue, and just made on the group box we've got here that all these labels and other label boxes here are going in, we just made that navy blue, okay, which is slightly lighter than deep blue. And to get this dice here, this is just the ones we had in the 1 number dice. So we've stretched our form a bit. You can see we've brought the group box down bigger and things, but this was our original white dice in the 1 dice rolling thing. So it's still pick 1 to pick 6, all stacked on top of each other. And all we've done there is that we've just changed the images over to these purple dice instead, okay? But it's still pick 1 to pick 6 there. And what we've done here is we copy and pasted dice and renamed them. So you can copy and paste these ones, like just take this one on top and copy it and then paste it like 6 times. And we named those as pick B1 to pick B6, all right? And so they're all here stacked on top of each other, as we showed you in that first video, 6 of them, and they're called pick B1, pick B2, pick B3, and so on up to pick B6. What we've done over here is the group box has been lengthened. We've copied and pasted these labels to make extra ones, and there is no 1s anymore, because the lowest you can get is a 1 and a 1, which adds up to 2. So they can add up to 2 all the way through to adding up to 12 if you get a 6 and a 6. So these are called label 2's count, and this one's called label 12's count. So in the labeling for those, this is label 2's count, label 3's count, LBL 9's count, LBL 10's count. So you need to name them exactly as they are on that form, so that in the program when we reference them, that's all going to work out okay, and it's going to put the right numbers into the right counters there, okay? So make sure you set all this up, label them, and call the picture boxes exactly what we've got on here, and everything should be good. All right, now in the program code, we need some additional counter variables. So we had a counter for ones, which we don't need anymore, but we need counters to add up twos, add to 3, add to 4, 5 or 6, and you need to add these ones as well. We can get totals of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So add all those in just by copying and pasting at the top of the program there where we had the other ones, and we don't need that ones counter anymore because it's impossible to roll a 1 with just 2 dice. The lowest you can get is a 1 and a 1, which is a 2. So we're starting off at int 2's counter, okay? And we also need to dimension another variable here, and this is where we're going to add our 2 dice together and get the current total for the current roll. So you need to have int dice roll total, just to mention that, and that's going to be an integer. All right, in the program code, we need to make sure the new dice 2, the pick B picture boxes, are also reset to be not visible at the start of the roll button. So after you previously did a roll, the dice are still showing on the screen and you want to clear them off when you start the next roll, okay? So we had all this stuff in here to make pick 1, pick 2, pick 3 visible on our first dice, and because we got this second dice now with pictures all stacked up on top of each other, you need to have pick B 1 dot visible equals false all the way through to pick B 6 dot visible equals false, so that yellow B dice gets cleared out and all of its pictures go invisible as well when you click the roll button. All right, so in the program code, remove all the counters code. So previously when we were checking what value had come up, so this is the code from the 1 dice, we're rolling the first dice, getting a number between 1 and 6 at random. We did have counters in here, you need to take all those out. So if the roll value from the random numbers comes up as 1, we just want to make pick 1 visible, so a 1 shows up on that first dice, okay? So get rid of any counters that are in here and make that old code just look exactly the same as this, all right? So that's what we need to do. Just take all those counter lines of code out of there, but still have pick 1 visible, pick 2 visible, and so on. All right, now we can clone the previous code. We were just looking at the code for the first dice and working out what random number had been picked and therefore what picture we show. We can just copy and paste that and use the same code underneath that other code just to do the second dice. So again, we need to randomize. Again, we need to pick another random number between 1 and 6. And depending on what this B roll value was, so here it's int B roll value, just so it's different from int roll value for the first dice. Depending on what the int B roll value was, we're going to make pick B1 visible, which is the yellow dice would be showing a 1 there. Or if we're down here at 4, if the B roll value when it did the random numbers calculation up here comes out 4, we're going to show the 4 one. So it's the exact same processing, it's just referencing the B dice, which is that yellow dice 2, okay, in our form there, which we've got set up. All right, in the final part of the roll button event, so we're still in that same subroutine where we've put all that other code, we're going to update the statistics and work out what the total on our dice is. So if the int dice roll total equals 2, so first up, we've got int roll value for our first dice still in memory, and we've got int B roll value for the yellow dice, that's still sitting in memory. So I've got the purple one and the yellow result here. We just add them both together and put them into int dice roll total. So this one here, the 2 would add on to the 3 and int dice roll total would be 5. So it should drop down to here and it's going to add 1 to the 5s counter and also refresh on the screen in that label here where we've got for the 5s set up, that box there where the current counter 5 goes in. It's just going to refresh that and put the current value of the counter into that text box, into that label there, into the text of this label. So if we rolled and we got 5 and it was 43, that should then update to 44. Okay, so we've just shown some of the code here. You need to check for all of those totals, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you can just copy and paste and continue all that code. And once we've done the total, there's only one total to do. So we just exit from the subroutine. Once we've found what total we've currently got, we don't need to go through and check all the others. So we can just exit from the subroutine and that is finished. And we've rolled our dice. We rolled the first one. Then in the program, we made a random number and rolled the second one. And we've updated those labels there, those totals. So we're actually done. All right, so that's it for the 2 dice project. So make sure you build that because we're going to refer back to these random numbers and these dice projects in later projects that we do. Okay, so dice are a fundamental thing for games, and how you randomly pick a number between 1 and 6 for your dice to show random numbers is also a really important part of our games course programming, okay? So YouTube's the simple storage area for our games programming videos, but remember you can go to PassyWorldOfICT.com, and if you click on VB Games, that will bring up all of the games we have done. It comes fairly quickly. That'll take you to the VB Games page, and here are all the games we've been working on. You need to do them in this order, so you should do jumping button first, and then you should do the desktop clock, the alarm clock, the top 5 favorites, and the next one that's going to slot in here, we haven't updated the web page yet, will be the rolling dice project, okay, which we're just filming right now. So yeah, you can always go to that page. That tells you what order you need to do them in. If you go to the lesson, it's just going to show you some key points about that particular lesson. So we just got some talking and some screenshots there of what was going on in the lesson, an overview of all the things we're covering, the YouTube video which you can watch here right on the lesson page, and then there's the information about getting the downloads, and they are so cheap, the downloads. Any resources you need, pictures, coding instructions, form designs, all those things are there, and it's less than $1.88 US for a single user. If you're a teacher watching this, just get it for your whole class, because it's less than US $4 to buy that, and then you've got a site license we give you so that up to 30 people in your class can use it and learn all the fun of programming in VBNet. All right, so that's that done, and thank you for watching this lesson. That's the end of the lesson. It's kind of a combined lesson of new and old, and make sure you learn these random numbers, learn to roll the dice, because this is some key skills you're going to need later on in the course. And if you like this video and found it useful, give it the big thumbs up, and remember to subscribe to our channel, and that way you get all the videos that are coming up. So when Paper, Rock, Scissors does come up, you will see that video there, and when the high score table one comes up further down the track, you'll see that video there as well. And you might also see, I know I'm a VBNet guy, but you might also see some Python videos possibly in the new year. Yes, I have been forced to do some Python learning, and so we might be making some videos for that. Alrighty, so that's it for this lesson, and there was one more thing I needed to say. Okay, this weekend, this video is late, should have been out last weekend because we're super busy. This coming weekend, we've got a really, really big photo job to do, so there won't be any videos or anything. So it's going to be at least 2 weeks until the next video, possibly 3, but we're trying to aim to have another one out in 2 weeks, okay? We try and do 1 week, but lots of photo work on this weekend, so it'll be 2 weeks till the next video. So we will see you then in the next video, and enjoy programming with VBNet.